Ryan and Folsom. Ryan, what's happening, man? You're on the roast. Good morning, Ryan.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hey, I wanted to talk about, you guys hit on a little bit in the show, but I wanted to talk about the gross underutilization of George Kittle, which I think is absolutely criminal when I'm watching. And not just because I watched last night, Kelsey go for 13 reception and 12 catches, which was awesome, but as you guys brought up, different offense, doesn't have a lot of really great, doesn't have the Avengers around him, as they say. But just looking at Kittle's stats for these last games here. Last game, 1 reception, 2 targets. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Dallas,
it's not good.
3 receptions, 4 targets. He had 3 touchdowns. Awesome, right? Against Arizona, 1 reception, 1 target. Against the awful New York Giants, he had 7 receptions. For the game against the Rams before that, he only had 3 receptions on 3 targets. To me, that is gross negligence in that offense. Now, I understand McCaffrey, right? I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I think he's way overutilizing him, and I think that's a big reason why we're in the spot we're in right now. But that's a story for another day. But anyways, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on Kittle because, like I said, honestly, I think as a head coach, that lower receptions for, to me, a Hall of Fame tight end is gross negligence.
Well, I'm glad you're bringing this up. So if you're looking at total targets throughout the first 7 weeks of the year, Travis Kelce, and he missed the game, okay? Some people have played bias. He leads the NFL 59 targets.
Yeah.
Almost 10 a game. The next guys, listen to this list. Evan Ingram, Laporta, Darren Waller, Hawkinson, Zach Ertz, Kyle Pitts, Goddard, Mark Andrews, all above 6.5 targets per game. You got to go all the way down to find yourself some George Kittle. I mean, George Kittle right here, 25 targets, less than half, 4.2 a game. They're targeting my guy 4.2 times a game. And I would love to know how many times are these guys higher than him he's like almost in the 30s. It's not just that he doesn't get targets. He's not even the primary or secondary route runner on a lot of these routes. And I think that's where the frustration stems. To me, when I look at the great tight ends, or even the ones on a lot of these other teams, like Goddard or Andrews, those are good teams. They prioritize getting those guys primary and secondary looks. I feel like Kittle's an afterthought in this offense, and it makes sense, but he's still one of the best playmakers in the game.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it makes sense when you're loaded with Deebo and
but you know what?
Ayuk and CMC.
We've seen other teams be loaded. Was it a problem with the 07 Patriots to get the ball to Wes Welker and Randy Moss and all those running backs that they had?
No.
Right? Is it a problem? You mentioned Dallas Goedert. He's a third option in Philadelphia. They still get the ball to Devontae. They still get the ball to A.J. Brown. They still get the ball to Swift. Kansas City. They still get the ball to Travis Kelce. How George Kittle walks off the field with only 2 targets is a joke. All right, I get it. You got to keep him in the block. But you're not getting your bang for your buck when you look at his contract.
I mean,
and you look at the money that he's made over the course of his career. You're using him like a blocker. So it's almost like the same way we speak about Kyle Juszczyk, right? Kyle Juszczyk doesn't get a lot of opportunities. But what are we paying him for? Well, that's on Shanahan. Because I do believe Juszczyk is worth every dime for what he does at fullback. Why he's underutilized, I don't know. I'm not in the head of Shanahan. I'm not calling the plays. Same thing with George Kittle. And I think Grant Cohn asked George Kittle last week about it. He said, why do you think you're being underutilized? He goes, well, I'm chipping, I'm blocking, I'm not called to do a lot of routes. And you know what? In games against Philadelphia, he's going to have to stay in and block.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because he is a weapon downfield. He's a guy, I think people forget, we don't see him used often in this offense. When he gets the ball in his hands, how many DBs want to tackle him?
He's one of the best yak guys in the league. I mean, outside of Kelce. Kelce's the gold standard. Who else is better with the ball in their hand?
At tight end, Mark Andrews pretty good.
Okay.
Darren Waller's pretty good. T.J. Hawkinson's pretty good.
I think Kittle's better than Waller with the ball in his hands.
With you.
Waller might be a better, downfield target. Like, those are different things. With the ball in his hands?
Well, and that again, you get George Kittle, and he's getting paid. This year, he got the signing bonus, so they converted the base to the signing bonus. But next year, he's on the hook for $21.9 million. $21.9 million.
That's a lot of money.
He gets used like a second tight end. That's a problem to me. That's a problem to me. He needs to be utilized in this offense. And if these guys up front can hold their own when it comes to blocking, then we got bigger issues on our hands.
I'm with you on that.
Because, again, when it comes to Cleveland, That's the type of defense you'll see against Philadelphia. That's the type of defense you're going to see against the Baltimore Ravens on Christmas night. You know what? Cincinnati, they're coming to town next Sunday. And their defense got after Geno Smith, after the Seattle Seahawks, and limited them to 13 points. So George Kittle, I need him more involved in the offense. I do. It's time to let him explode. And he just did against Dallas with the 3 touchdown catches, but it was 3 targets. Can we get George Kittle 6 to 8 to 10 targets? When I'm looking at the passing game, and if, say, Purdy drops back 32 times, I know I'm long-winded here, Shasky, but if he drops back 32 times, Ayuk needs 8, Kittle needs 8, Deebo needs about 8, and McCaffrey needs about 8. Spin the wheel and figure out when to get these guys the ball. But they need at least 8 targets a game.
Well, I don't know how you can come out of a game last week and prioritize getting Ray McCloud the ball more than George Kittle.
Yeah.
Even if Ray's going in for an injured Deebo, like, your game plan needs to be adjusted. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to alter that on the fly. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think having the entire week of practice and everything,
right.
I would think that George Kittle would be a huge part of the offense. The other thing is, if they're not biting on the play action, last week you kept going back to the play action. It wasn't working. No one was biting.
No.
You need to abort mission this week and maybe just do some drop back, spread it out, go 5 wide.
Well, I don't know. It's just the way they use a Kittle right now, he's such an explosive playmaker. We've forgotten how explosive he is with the football in his hands. He gets big chunk plays. And when he gets big chunk plays, that sideline reacts differently to George Kittle. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's certain players who make things happen, and you react differently. And it's a jolt to that, not only the offense, but the entire football team. Yeah. Kittle's one of those players. He's one of those players where he gives a jolt to the entire team because he makes a play and he gets people going. Let's get to Sodi. Is it Sodi? Sodi? Sodi and SF. Sodi, what's happening? You're on the roast.
What's happening, gentlemen? How you doing?
Good, man. Good morning.
Great. I'm ready for tonight's game.
Hey, first-time caller. I'm a garbage man here in San Francisco. I listen to you guys every morning, man.
Appreciate you. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
So I wanted to talk about the Deebo injuries, and I hate to sound negative, but I'm so sick of this guy being hurt all the time. And see, one thing nobody ever mentions about Deebo is not only does he get hurt and miss games, he gets hurt during games and doesn't finish games. I mean, they did a stat the other day on how many games he hasn't finished. It's like almost half of the games he's missed. It's crazy.
That's something we're going to be looking at ever since he signed a new contract. By his admission, Deebo Samuel Shasky, and you've been all over this, he didn't have a good year in 2022.
No.
He didn't have a good season.
After one of the great Niners seasons of all time.
All time.
I mean,
he admitted.
He dragged the Niners through the playoffs.
He admitted, as I watched Dallas Goedert on our screen run a tight end screen for a touchdown.
How ironic is that?
We're talking tight ends, National Tight End Weekend. We'll see if the national tight end of the 49ers can get some catches today, some targets. But Deebo Samuel, ever since he signed that deal, even before he signed that deal, I think why a lot of fans feel like Sodi and SF, and why I'm starting to find out that some fans are out on Deebo, it's because before he signed the contract, there was a lot of chirping. And there's a lot of scrubbing on Instagram and a lot of scrubbing talking about, I'm not playing for the 49ers. They're disrespecting me, blah, 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 blah. I want to be a Jet, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of fans are like, oh, really? Come on, Deebo, really? Not every fan, but some fans. And then you sign the contract and you don't produce. And then you come back and you're a captain of the football team. But like you, there's some people who are not happy with the way he chirps. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, even though he started it, a lot of people didn't like Deebo Samuel clapping back at that. And now he's hurt. Now he's got a hairline fracture in the shoulder. And now we got a guy where I think it's safe to say, can we count on him to play 17 games a year?
I think that's going to be a big question for him, B.
Well,
and then like, if he's not playing his particular brand of football, is he the same Deebo? Like, asking a guy to Tiger to change his stripes, you're taking away the essence of what makes him so unique, right? He's never going to be a burner. That's just not in his DNA. I mean, like, it is what it is. He's played 6 games this year, right?
Right.
He's played the 6 games, but he's going to miss a couple. I mean, is he going to have more player beefs throughout the league than games played this year?
Wow.
He's gone at it with Aaron Donald again, Micah Parsons. He's gone at it with CJ. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's 3 beefs right there. You're going to be missing the next couple of games.
Where here's Alex in Atlanta without Deebo Samuel. Alex in Atlanta spent $5 in the super chat. Important context tonight, folks. The Vikings are only allowing 56 rushing yards per game at home this season. At home, they're a lot better against the run than they are on the road. So they get the crowd noise, they get they get all that stuff going on, and they stop the run. Deebo Samuel next year. We talk about George Kittle's contract. Deebo's getting paid $28.5 next year and $24.2. And when I say $28.5, $24.2, I'm talking millions. All right, $28.5 million next season, $24.2 million the year after.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money for a guy who may not be available for all 17.
Well, like if you just look at like raw production and bang for the buck, how many wide receivers come into the league and can get you 1,100 yards? Like, and again, those are on bad teams. Like there's nuance to all of this, but B, it has never been easier to find receivers in the middle and late rounds.
Right.
Deebo's more than a receiver. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if you're just talking about yardage and pure production, you can offset his production. And if he's not running the rock and he's not being physical, well, then he's not Deebo.
Right.
It's such a catch-22.
No, it is. Couple texts here before we get back out to the lines and we shift this conversation towards Christian McCaffrey. Maybe Kittle isn't getting wide. Maybe Kittle isn't getting open. Now, against Cleveland, they did have that sticky man-and-man coverage. He was not getting open. This should be a game he should be open. Whether or not Harrison Smith is covering him, I don't care. George Kittle's one of the best tight ends in football. Get open and get this guy the ball. Get him the ball. Now, Deebo, there's going to be a bigger conversation on Deebo as you look at the playmakers in Philadelphia, you look at the playmakers in Kansas City, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay lose a game at home to Atlanta. They've just lost back-to-back games at home to Detroit and Atlanta. Mike Evans doesn't sound bad right now. You may need another playmaker on the outside. You just may. You just may.
ESPN put out a post the other day about Bill Barnwell suggesting who would get traded for what and what their value would be, and it was Justin Jefferson for multiple firsts and a player.
That player being?
It just said a player. But my point being is that, you know, if you were going to move off of Deebo, there's a huge cap hit, and you lose a big element of physicality. You lose a guy that really sets the tone on both sides of the ball for what your team is. I don't know. Some of those pass-happy teams tend to lose their physicality. And,
they do.
And like, as great as Justin Jefferson, he is a great, great, great player. Deebo really does fit the ethos of what the Niners are.
He does fit. He does fit. Mike Evans could be physical too, though.
No, I love Mike Evans. You know that. He's one of my favorite players.
But you know what? And I'm seeing YouTube, Veggie Delight. We're about to transition to this in just a second about CMC and Bosa. But this is a huge game for Nick Bosa. A lot of people are saying, I don't want to hear about quarterback pressures. I want to hear about sacks. Now, he's got a lot of pressures, but so does Mad Max Crosby. So does Aaron Donald. All right? So does Myles Garrett. They're making impactful plays. TJ Watt. They're changing the game with plays they're making on the football field. Myles Garrett yesterday put on a show in Indianapolis. TJ Watt continues to put on the show.
Game-winning plays.
Bosa, it's a big game for Nick Bosa on primetime television. Which Nick Bosa is going to show up?
Yeah, he needs this one tonight. And you're looking at two tackles that aren't, apex guys.
No.
He should be able to have his way. And I'm looking at the interior of this offensive line for Minnesota. This is a Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead game. These two need to show up tonight. And Hargrave's been outstanding, but I need to see some of that impact. I want to see them in that backfield over and over and over
More
again.
podcasts or Eric Armstead or sack numbers? More podcasts or sacks for Eric Armstead?
And he did a thing. I don't know if those that are paying attention. He was breaking down like an NFL game check and where the money goes. Eric, do me a favor. You've worked your ass off to get the money that you've earned. You've earned the money. It's a bad look when you're complaining about taxes and you're making that kind of money.
Yeah.
When your consumer base makes a fraction of that in a lifetime, it's just a bad look. And I understand why you were trying to do it. You were trying to explain fiscal comprehension and where the money goes and all that. I thought that was someone in his circle needed to be like, hey, dude, maybe you shouldn't complain about making millions and millions and millions of dollars per game.
I'm with you there. It's probably not the best look. Let's go.